Now, in other news, after years of disagreement and stagnation, the cabinet approving a plan to lower the age for exemptions from IDF service. The new age of exemption for young men in the ultra-orthodox community now set to 21 as opposed to 24. But will this plan solve the myriad issues with respect to haredim in both the Israeli army and workforce? With us to discuss is former Yesh Atid Knesset member and Rabbi Dov Lipman. Dov Lipman, thank you so much for being with us. Now, first off, I want to wish you congratulations on welcoming a new baby boy into the family. But putting that aside, I know you support these changes to the military in theory, but functionally speaking, what does reducing the age of exemptions do?
First of all, thank you so much for the congratulations as my wife and I become grandparents for the first time of a young man who hopefully will study Torah and serve in the IDF. The reducing of the age, basically the concept is, until now, those in the ultra-Orthodox community have been, I'm going to use a very harsh word, many have been trapped in a system. Those who are no longer studying Torah day and night as their only pursuit, but they're not going to go to the army, they don't have the option of going to work because Israel gives them an exemption from serving in the army because they're studying Torah, which means that they can't go to work until an age further on into their 20s. And that creates a scenario where they're already married, they have children, and they're not able to support their families because they can't go to work. What the government did in approving this measure is saying at the age of 21 already, if you received an exemption from serving in the army, but you no longer want to stay in yeshiva, you can go out and find a job. You can get training and go to work. And that's something I certainly work very hard on in this organization called haredim to help young men get training and get jobs and support their families. So they're no longer trapped in yeshiva, so to speak, but they have the option. If they don't want to study, they don't have to go to the army, but they can go to work. And that's a major, major change for the Haredi society and also for broader Israel.
So for the Haredi society, this is a welcome change, I can understand. That said, for the secular society, which views Haredi involvement in the military as lacking, 21 is still fairly old for conscription. Does this really address the issue of students staying in yeshiva just to avoid the draft or otherwise participating in national service?
One of the things that broader Israel has come to realize, and I know this from even back in 2013 as a member of Yesh Atid and being on the committee to draft the legislation about this issue, is that you're not going to have en masse every single 18-year-old Haredi going to the army. It's just not going to happen. It's not even worth that effort, the literal civil war that will happen, because at the age of 18, these are critical years when these young men are studying in yeshiva and the rabbinic seminaries. So the idea is to try to find some kind of a balance. Those that will serve in the army, let's find units for them in the army that meet their needs. Let's try to find a way to make it enticing for them to come. Let's even set goals that must come to the army from these communities and from the yeshivot. But otherwise, let's recognize that for ideological reasons, they are not going to serve in the army. And therefore, why keep them in a situation where they're just receiving money from the state and not actually working and paying tax revenue back to the state? And I think this is a progression which has taken place in broader Israeli society as the leaders realized we can't just have this all-out battle about the army, yes, army or no army. Let's be a little bit nuanced about this and introduce employment and the workforce into the picture. And I think that's a very important step that this government has taken. And by the way, you don't hear screams and cries from the ultra-Orthodox leadership. There's actually quite a bit of quiet because I think they also recognize that there are benefits to this plan which could actually serve their community to not always be in this cycle of poverty.
But this plan, it doesn't say anything about national service. It's just about conscription. Is that right?
There is an issue that they do talk about the possibility of introducing some kind of a national guard type of idea where they help in their communities, and that could serve as a mode of service. We introduced that actually in our law in 2014 as well. There's a number of people, in the hundreds, if not thousands, actually thousands in the ultra-Orthodox community that are volunteering in Magen David Adom and the ambulance corps and in other areas as well. Let's concretize that as actual service, and therefore they're part of the national ethos that everyone serves the country. So there is a discussion of introducing that as part of this legislation, and I certainly hope that they do so because I think it also contributes to this idea of we're one people and all of us have to serve the country in one way or another.
All right, now my last question, there's an interesting caveat to this proposed law, and that's that gradually the age of exemption will be raised back up to 24 slowly. What is the point of all of this if it's going to be reversed anyway? What's the intentions behind the caveat that slowly the ultra-Orthodox will change their opinions about the army?
Yeah, if I had to find one clause in this that I disagree with, it is that concept. I think keep it at 21 and don't think you're going to change the culture of a community. And in fact, that little step makes them suspicious and they say, what is this all about? You're not really doing this for the long term. I think the assumption from the government side, or the hope from the government side, is that many more will start to leave the yeshivot and they'll start getting involved in Israeli society. And then at some point, that would translate into army also, and maybe we can somehow bring things back to where they are today. I think it's a mistake. I think that they're misreading the map if they think it's going to happen that way. The best thing to do is to open up the workforce, let them be part of Israeli society, both in terms of sustaining themselves with dignity and also in terms of creating a bridge between broader Israel and the ultra-Orthodox community. That is the best approach to take. And if they start tinkering with these numbers a little bit and start doing things which do cause the ultra-Orthodox community to recoil and say, we don't want to participate in this, that's going to be the downfall of this legislation and this initiative. And I hope that they certainly rethink that concept again.
All right, Rabbi Dov Lipman, thank you again so much for joining us, and congratulations again on your grandson.
Thank you so much.